one thing is for sure, that in the last 20-25 years, if you look at the way the importance that people have started giving to how they look, or the importance that they are forced, I would say that maybe not everyone out of their free will gives importance to how they look. They are being forced by the popular impressions and whatever is happening to look into that direction. I guess given a choice and given freedom and a space, many people may want to simply walk out of it or lessen this. So it has been a growing obsession. There has been now almost every street corner has a slimming institute, a health club, a beauty institute, a plastic surgeon, various other things, various other things that one can see, all which promise you that if you come to us, you will get a good body. And why do you need a good body? Because they claim, and that is what everyone believes, once you have a good body, you will have a lot of goodness in your life. You will have a good partner, you will have a good profession, you will have a good confidence, you will have happiness. So that's how it goes on. So the body or the appearance is not just appearance, it has become sort of a key to unlock a treasure of happiness which everyone is very, very keen to get. So physical appearance has come to be overloaded with meaning. It always had a meaning. It's like when two people, when you see someone attractive. I mean, many interesting researchers actually have seen that the babies who look good or who are cute, they are the ones that people would really want to pick up and play with, and they tend to have nice experiences as growing up children. So physical appearance always had some meaning, some connotation. All cultures have talked about it. They have had elaborate thesis on how to have a good physical appearance. In their art, in their sculpture, you see glimpses of it, but in the present context, it is becoming extremely overloaded with meaning. There's this image that's created of a so-called designer body. That it's no more a human body, it's more like a designer body. The kind of nose, your nose should be like this, the jawline should be like this, hair should be like this, your biceps should measure this inches. Like if it's less than that inches, then that's not a designer body. Your abs should be like this, your waist should be this size. So there's this hypothetical image of designer bodies, and there is a whole bunch of health products, beauty treatments, and obviously the surgeon's knife to help people achieve that. And many people are in this circle. There are some who think that why they are in this circle, but there are some who don't think why they are in this circle. There are people who run in this circle and who have been running in this circle, who would crawl on to see, say every week how much are they gaining, how much are they losing, and who get really distressed. One thing is to be concerned at how much you are gaining, but one thing, it's a totally different thing to be distressed about how much you are gaining. So there are people who are very distressed. There are people who they'll have a pimple on their face and they'll be very, very distressed. As I said, it's always very normal and natural to be concerned about one's appearance and to enhance it. It's a very basic human way of living, and given a choice, a large majority of people would say that why not? I would want a good skin, I would want thick hair, I would want attractive features, I would want a well-toned body, why not? So that's not what we are talking about, but we are talking largely focusing on this segment of people. For some people, these concerns cross over into a sort of preoccupation. That appearance comes to be one major thing or theme in their life, and their life starts revolving around this idea that they should look beautiful, and they would go to various lengths to do that. I remember the first case of this sort that I'd seen, and initially I was not really so much, I was very open to people being concerned about their weight or about their appearance, but this one person whom I had seen approximately 11 years ago, I'll call him Mr. K. He told me that he had undergone 2 nose surgeries. He felt that his nose was very flat and it was not triangular and it was not the way it should be. My nose is also not like that, the way it should be. So he had undergone 2 different surgeries, but after each surgery he ended up feeling even more horrible about his nose. He claimed that the surgeon had done a very horrible job, that the nose was not the way it should have been. The surgeon, on the other hand, mentioned that he had a good deal of experience in this surgery and he had done his best, to give this person the kind of nose that this person wanted. But each time after surgery, this person had become more and more concerned about his nose. And interestingly, his image or his feeling about his nose was not constant. It would change at times on a daily basis. That one day he would get up and look in the mirror and would say, it's not so bad, it's okay. But the second day when he would get up and have a look, he would say that it's extremely horrible. How can I walk out with this nose? Apart from that, after these 2 nose jobs, he was now considering the third one. He had really become concerned about some acne scars that had been there, from his teenage. And he was now also seeking some kind of treatment for them. His surgeon now was very concerned because the surgeon had a sense that if I go on giving this person treatments, then there may be a case that he may still be more and more dissatisfied with his appearance, and that's why the surgeon had sort of psychological consultation. So that's the way in some people that these concerns can really blow up into, and we'll be talking more about them today. So they start suffering from what is known as the appearance anxiety, that you are very anxious about your appearance, or it's severe psychiatric psychological disorder, which is called the body dysmorphic disorder. These people develop a preoccupation with mild or even imagined defects in their appearance, and their lives get structured around hiding or getting rid of these defects. What happens is, all of us, if you were to look at our face or at our body, all of us will have 1 or 2 areas which we don't like, or maybe more. We may not like our face, we may not like the way our body fat is distributed on our body. We may not like, say some marks on our body. We may not like, we may want a few more hair at some places. We may not want a few more hair at some places, and various things like that. So we all would have some kind of real defects and some kind of mild defects. If someone has a very real severe defect, someone with a face burn or someone with a weight very, very abnormal, then anxiety would be genuine. It will be warranted in that case. But in quite a few cases, where other people around the person may feel that that this is not really something to be so much concerned about, or yeah, it is there, but it's not such a big deal. But the person is really concerned about that, then it is a mild defect. In people who are concerned about their appearance, there can also be at times certain imaginary defects. Now, imaginary defects do not mean that they are delusional or they are imagining something to be grossly ugly. It's just that they when they look at their any feature or part of their body, they find it very repulsive. And they find it defective in some gross sense and they want to change it. People suffering from appearance anxiety focus exclusively on the few negatives. That's the hallmark of these people. Like people who are more or less normal, they would feel that yes, I have this one scar over there, or I don't have like a six-pack abs, or I don't have this kind of a very smooth, lustrous skin, or after the age of 40, I'm having some kind of dark circles over here, or some changes in my face, and my skin has started sagging. But they can still recall in their mind certain positives about their appearance, hold on to them, and they give them more or less kind of a confidence in their appearance. That fine, the normal or average person would say that few negatives and few positives, I'm an okay person overall. I can I can go like this and deliver a talk, I can go like this and date, I can go like this to public functions, or the person can think of certain very positive attributes about their personality and say that fine, even if I'm not good looking, I am a very confident person, or my body language is in a certain way, I can carry myself off well, so on and so forth. But these people, their 95% attention rests on those few negatives. So that's how they are different from the average normal people. Average normal people would also be very concerned about their appearance, but they can divert their attention from that and they can think about certain positive aspects about themselves. But these people, no matter how hard they try, their mind would come back to that kind of a deficit, that I'm like this, that my nose is like this, my skin has started sagging, I have fat on my belly, I have fat here, I have fat there. They may have a hard time relaxing and concentrating on other activities as they start dwelling on their appearance concerns. So what happens is that they would get into these two kinds of things, obsessions and compulsions. Obsessions would mean that the idea that they have a defect in their body or in their appearance would keep on coming back to their mind. So even when they are going about their daily activities, or they are reading something, they are meeting someone, they would still carry this idea back in their mind. And at times they are very distressed, because even if they want to push out this idea from their mind, this idea does not go away, it keeps coming back. That my body is like this, my body is like this, my body is like this. And because they get very distressed by this idea, so then they start spending a lot of time in dealing with this thought, or in trying to do something about their body. So someone who feels that their skin is very horrible, they would start reading a lot on how to get rid of those blemishes. They may start taking various kind of treatments for that, and those things will assume a lot of priority in their life. The more severe the preoccupation, the greater the priority it would require, and more the number of obsessions and these compulsions. And at times these thoughts about appearance can be so hauntingly severe that they start doing poorly in various spheres of their life. If they are students, they would have hard time studying. If they are working, it would be hard to work. In their relationships also, they would be like very anxious about being rejected, and they would. It's a hard time for them to leave themselves loose and relax and enjoy the fun. So that's how it happens. Like one person I remember who would kind of say that, this college student, she was so concerned about her face and her acne that rather than paying attention to her GMAT classes, she completely took off for them, and she went on and signed up for a whole 1 month laser treatment for these scars. And at that point of time, she could not really. I mean, she said that this GMAT coaching is very important for me, and it matters because the next year I have to sit for an entrance. But this thought so painfully haunts her. So she was very disturbed by the fact that this idea that she's not good looking keeps coming back to her so many times in the day that she thought it's better, to first get this sorted out and then take up something else. So that's the way they can be. So as a result, these people suffer from low self-esteem. They don't feel good about who they are. They don't feel happy with what they are. And self-esteem is one component which is very, very essential for anyone to do anything in life. If someone has a low self-esteem, they would get into huge compromises in every sphere of their life, and then the whole gamut of difficulties would start. They feel very anxious also because they have this sense that the entire world is out judging them, and that that they would be disliked, they would be rejected because of this thing. They also feel anxious because that they are unable to have control on these thoughts. One person told me that I'm not so anxious about कि मुझे thoughts बार-बार आते कि मतलब मेरी appearance ऐसी है, but I'm so anxious about कि मुझे ये thought एक दिन में 100 बार आता है और मैं उसको रोक नहीं पाती. So the anxiety was more about this thing that you have lost the self-control, and this idea keeps on coming back to you, like a very annoying thing. As a result, they feel very hopeless, helpless, and worthless. They don't feel good at all about themselves. These people have a highly perfectionist streak about their appearance, and they often compare their appearances with those of others, including very good-looking people on streets, models in the media, and this leaves them more depressed. That they would often compare their body or their feature with some standard, that my nose is not like that. And in fact, many people, when they go to a surgeon, they would also go with this, that I want, that I want a jawline like this film star, my lips should be like this, or I want a dimple on my cheek, so various things. Reassurance seeking is very, very common in these people, and it's a lost battle on both the sides, in the sense that because they're feeling very insecure about their appearance, so they have a need to ask, their family, their friends, that am I looking good? But because they are so convinced about their so-called ugliness that no matter how hard anyone tries to convince them or say, they would simply say, oh, they are saying this to just make me feel good, they don't mean it. So it's a lost battle. If someone says that you don't look good, it will confirm their belief that they don't look good. Even if someone were to say that you look good, they would be still, like one person told me that, my family says that that I look good, but I think they are just trying to make me feel good. They don't want me to be depressed, and they don't want me to spend so much of time in trying to improve my appearance. So it's a, and as a result, their relationships also start deteriorating. That they would kind of be, because people around them are like so sick of giving reassurances that that they really run out of steam. And secondly, people around them cannot understand, because for a normal person, one generally thinks that this person is like too much obsessed with something very superficial, so you start having a ridicule for that person, like On the contrary, if someone were to come to you and say that I can't study well, and I'm really concerned about my studies, you would still have more empathy for that person and will try to help that person out. But if someone comes and says that I don't look good and I'm upset about, so that really generates a negative reaction, which gets communicated. So people around them are unable to understand the extent of their difficulty. That it's not just, that most of these people, they don't want to look good, they just want to look acceptable. They want to come to that point where they can be accepted by others. That's what they are thinking. These people would very often bring up the topic asking over and over again, and this can be extremely frustrating for friends, spouses, family members, because as I said, that the person is not reassured no matter how much reassurance one provides. And this thought would kind of go on in their mind. And another thing is that people who suffer from appearance anxiety may either avoid getting photographed, or they would always, if someone thinks that my profile looks good, so the person would always try to give a profile page, and it can be very difficult when such a person is about to get married, because then you are clicked from all the angles, and then you cannot sit in a profile, So, yeah. And they would even when they are at times coming in public, they would try to come in a certain pre-planned position or posture. It could be as weird as that. This is very common, and here I don't want to, I don't want to really raise any kind of, objection to the normal makeup or grooming that people do. It's very normal to do the normal makeup and grooming, but these are the people who would really very elaborately spend a lot of time in hiding, disguising or camouflaging their body parts or their body postures through clothes and through makeup. Like one person whom I had seen, she did not like her breasts, and she would walk with a stooped posture, a stooped posture, a hunched posture like this, so that it could hide them. She thought she was like too big, and so she would walk like that, and she would also wear she would take a shrug, in summers, in winter she would always cover herself with the stole to just hide herself, and she would do it every day. So you could just imagine that how painful it can be, but that's what people make. So these elaborate rituals, they may take hours, these people may look stupid while doing that, or they may cause extreme discomfort, but they would still go on doing it. Many would also indulge in extended mirror checking or completely avoid mirrors. In fact, they would have phases that for a few days they would be like sitting in front of mirror, and they would be or they would be like scanning their body and trying to see that how is it looking. So they could spend a lot of time on that, or at times when their obsessions are at a peak or when they have a lot of dislike for themselves, they may completely avoid looking into the mirrors for a long time. And generally what happens is that they end up feeling worse after this mirror gazing. Because they are so uncomfortable about how they look and how they appear, they are also extremely shy, anxious and uncomfortable in various social situations, and they would avoid them. They would avoid going out or meeting people, they would avoid social situations because they would feel that I don't look good. Again, I'm not saying that everyone who visits a plastic surgeon would have this problem. My general idea is that if people who don't have this problem, they may have a real defect and they visit a plastic surgeon, or they may have a minor defect and they visit a plastic surgeon, but after that procedure they are fine. Then they don't bother about their appearance. But someone who, despite getting the job done, either keeps on thinking about it or their preoccupation shifts to some other area, then they are the ones who have a preoccupation. So some of these people have a preoccupation with visiting plastic surgeons and getting multiple surgeries. So they are not the ones who will be happy after one surgery. They would still feel something incomplete about it and want to get it changed, or they may kind of, like in some cases, it's very interesting, that the sense, like I remember this one person who had like who had a paunch where a lot of fat on his belly, and he tried like jogging, exercising. It went down a bit, but he was still, that thought kept on coming onto him, and so he thought that it's better that I go to a plastic surgeon and get a liposuction. I'll be fine after that. So he went to the surgeon. The liposuction was done, and he was happy with the result. But after like few weeks down the line, he started having a major preoccupation with that my hair have started thinning, and all the thoughts and feelings that he had in relation to his belly fat now came to his head. He would spend earlier on he was spending like many hours a day reading about how to reduce fat, how to get the abs. Now he started reading about how to regrow your hair. He started searching for tonics. He was so crazy that he went to an allopathic doctor, a homeopathic doctor, an Ayurvedic doctor, was taking all those medicines at one point of time. He even went to the extent that he started considering the option of getting a hair transplant done. So that was very interesting. That before this he was not so bothered about his hair, but once that thing got sorted out, so he started being very bothered about his hair. So it indicated that there was something in the mind of this person that his attention was too much fixated on the appearance. So once when one thing got sorted out, a completely new obsession started. So these are the people who are very bad candidates for any kind of surgical procedure, because first they need to be like things need to be sorted out in their head, then in their body. In very extreme cases, this happens very early, but people at times when the preoccupation is very painful or it has been very long, then they feel very enraged and very hopeless. And some very rare people also indulge in self-amputation or suicide. But it's very rare. It's not so common, but some do that out of this thing. They also indulge in skin picking and picking or pulling on the disliked body part of the feature, trying to push it, trying to contour it with their hand. And this is generally carried out either due to hatred, because these people also start hating that particular part of the body. It's not just that they don't like it, they start hating it, and or they also do it as an attempt to see that whether if this feature were to be slightly different or it were to change, how would they look. Yeah. So anyone would like to share if they have seen someone with appearance concerns and any of your experiences with anyone else? Yeah.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah?
Michael Jackson.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, he was one very important example of this. Multiple surgeries, changing of skin color, various other things. Yeah.
Can this thing be projected also? I mean, I personally am like pretty overweight, so I'm not that concerned about it. But my dad is like obsessed with it. Every 95% of what he says to me is regarded to that, how bad I'm looking or how overweight I am. I mean, I'm not so good. I mean, okay, fine, I don't like being like this. But it's more of his projection that's telling me to these thoughts. So is that really possible having this thing projected?
Okay, see, I would really want to have a lot more details on what you were saying before commenting, but since you have raised this question, yes. I mean, in some very rare cases, when say you are, that when you don't want to feel that anxiety, if you have a lot of anxiety and concern about that thing, it's at times easier to see that in, to locate that center outside of yourself. So it can be there, but I can't really confirm, whether it is there before I know a lot more about that.
Mr. Pulkit Sharma,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
So far you have been talking about the preoccupation or obsession
Yes.
of the prospective patient,
Yeah.
or a person who keeps himself in an inferiority situation
Right.
on account of some acne or any other unlikely defect
Right.
in comparison with the normal person,
Right.
and he goes to the extent of comparing himself with the specification of a role model. Can you, from a surgeon's point of view, can you give us some idea if it would be possible for the surgeon to preconceive or predetermine a possible profile of the patient, not only for remedy but also bringing about as an after effect of his conducting the operation? Will it be possible for any surgeon to assure or guarantee that for a specified fee?
That the person's features can be changed in this manner.
You also talked about experienced surgeons.
Yeah.
They also claim they are experienced surgeon. When a person pays some money, you also have some expectations.
True.
So will it be possible for him to assure or guarantee some the likely profile of after conducting the operation?
Do we have a plastic surgeon in this gathering, or any surgeon by any chance? No. Or anyone knows of someone? Okay.
Okay, next year then you can.
No. I was thinking if we have someone in the audience, that person will be much more qualified than me to answer it. See, to the extent that I know that the surgeon can give you a rough sketch of how it can be changed, but no one would really assure or guarantee that your nose will be like this. They can say that it may change in this manner, or they do show you a lot of snaps of people who have undergone that surgery, that how they look before and after, or they can show you a rough sketch of how your face would also look. But to my knowledge, no one can give that kind of 100% guarantee onto that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so when we kind of come across all this, or it brings up this very interesting question in mind, that what could have led to this? Why this? How come someone starts suffering from this? So any idea, what could be leading to all this? Why would someone be so concerned about how they look? Yes, sir.
They may not have a feel-good factor in any of their other achievements in life.
Very true.
And that is the main concern why they are feeling negative about their body parts.
Very true.
But if they have some achievement other than in their lives and have a feel-good factor, then the obsession should not be there.
Yeah.
It could also be the change in their appearance. If they were looking normal before,
Right.
and after gaining weight or after losing
Some kind of a drastic change.
exactly.
Yeah.
So a difference in the behavior of the family or friends could lead to something.
Okay.
Peer or social pressure can also be one thing.
Peer and social pressure, very important. Yeah. Right. Fine. So let's look at some of these, individual and social factors. So as you said, let's talk first of all about the ugly self. So what is the ugly self? Yeah. So in almost every person who hates, I'm not saying who dislikes. There's a difference between disliking and there's a different hating. So in every person who hates, they're more or less normal average body. There exists deep down inside a self-conscious, weak and shame-faced child. Someone who feels very small, very inferior, very conscious. These are generally the people who have had traumatic experiences in their life in the sense that either they have had experiences of being rejected, abandoned, or where they were loved and cared for, not because of who they really were, but because of some kind of function that they fulfilled. Meaning that the person feels that he or she is not being valued for who she really is. So that makes them feel very horrible about their self, about their total self. And this generally happens when there's a lot of pressure that one will be valued only if, that's very important, if in people around you there's a lot of pressure that you would be valued only if you exist in a certain way, then the person somewhere starts feeling that whatever I am, that is completely horrible and unacceptable. So now when someone has that kind of a feeling towards oneself, it's like very close to death, because you are what you are, and if you feel day in and day out that whatever you are in total, it's like horrible. So then what do you do with that? Interestingly, because our mind is like this, both our mind or body, they have certain defenses in place, which help us dealing with pain, which help us converting a severe pain into a milder pain. So when someone feels very horrible about their self, so certain defense mechanisms, they start operating, and which try to change the focus of the negative feeling. So instead of the focus being that I am completely horrible, the focus goes on to the body. So that the person can believe that I am more or less okay, that in their conscious mind they feel that I am more or less okay, but my body is horrible, rather than feeling completely that I am horrible. So this helps them still to survive to some extent and to contain that pain to some extent, though not totally. It's not obviously a good strategy, but so it's almost like that, rather than falling from like a very huge altitude, they just fall down from on the first floor balcony, but not from like a mountain. So it's like that. Nevertheless, it's dysfunctional. So displacement is the defense mechanism that these people use. What generally happens here is that the person is able to redirect the feeling or the response to another less threatening object. So the body is comparatively less threatening than the self. So that's why it happens in that manner. So instead of the self, the body then becomes the target. And in general, there is a lot of denial around it. So generally, when as a psychologist or as a very fresh graduate who would start dealing with such cases, we initially ask this person that, well, do you feel horrible about yourself, or do you feel low in yourself? And the person will generally say that, no, I'm fine. And we take that thing at the face value, though that is never the truth. Because there's a lot of denial around it, because you've got to understand that something in that person's mind is helping that person deal with that pain. So there's a lot of denial around it which needs to be understood and broken down and penetrated before the person can also acknowledge and accept this. So it's not simply like giving someone a questionnaire and the person saying yes or no to it. Secondly, as someone was saying, an abusive childhood, that can be, and various kinds of childhood abuse can have a very high correlation with appearance anxiety. We'll be talking about some. Two cases come to my mind from this. There was this one, this person whom I'm currently working with, and if most of you were to look at him, if you were to come here, you will say that he is very handsome, because he is 5 feet 11 and a half inches, something like that. He goes regularly to the gym. He has a very good body, But this person came to me with this thing. He said that I have been training for 5 years. I have built up my biceps, but even now when I see someone, who has a slightly bigger biceps than me, because he has real big biceps, so no one can have like too big biceps than him, but slightly bigger obviously people can have. So he said that I somewhere feel, I start hating my body, and I feel that I need to do something to get that kind of body. And now he said that despite training so much and despite eating, despite practically living on the whey protein, he said I have been unable to achieve that body. So that was the point that when he thought that that maybe there's something more than the body that needs to be taken care of. In general, also in these people, when one, as a family member or as someone close to them, you may give them this idea that there's something wrong with your head and not with your body. They would show a lot of resistance to that idea because they are convinced that there is something wrong with their body, and it will take them a good deal of time, at times many years, to come to this point when they also can feel that that I have tried enough, but it is not leading me anywhere. So this was the person that came to my mind. Apart from so I was telling you about this person. So one very significant thing in this person's history was that as a child he was teased and bullied by people in his neighborhood and people at his school. So he had enshrined this idea that he is a weak person. So he felt very horrible and weak about himself, and that got transferred into that I have a very horrible and weak, I have not a big enough, a bulky enough body. That was the idea that he had. So when we talk of abusive childhood, sexual abuse is like the most severe form of childhood abuse, and it can be very devastating to a person's sense of their body image, their appearance, everything. What generally happens is that the victim would, they have memories of that experience and memories of their body in that experience. So they have a lot of hatred towards their body. And because of that, they may dislike several aspects of their body, which any other person who has not undergone that experience would be absolutely fine with. Furthermore, they may feel responsible for the abuse, and they actually may feel that my body is responsible for the abuse, because there's a sense that the body was violated and the body was the object of the abuse. So they kind of think about their body as something which is bad, undesirable, needs to be despised and punished, and this leads to a lot of problems with the body image. And as I was referring to this person, that teasing and bullying experiences also lead to a sense that there is something very inadequate about yourself and about your body. At times what happens is that, as I said, that that when we have psychological pain, it's easier for us to feel that pain towards less important targets rather than more important targets. So what generally happens is that people at times shift their anxieties onto their body when they have much more severe anxieties that they could be worried about, but they simply shift the focus onto that. And interestingly, people who have been abused, it is also found out that when they are experiencing an anxiety attack, when they are feeling horrible about their body, they are actually very close. The pain is very similar in intensity to the pain of the childhood abuse, of that trauma. So it's like this, that almost that the entire pain is being transferred onto this point. Yeah, so media influences something. Someone was talking about the peer and the social influences. So the social and the media influences. Pick up any magazine, any newspaper, you would see so many nice before-after images, Someone who, all these very interesting ads, that you would see on various channels, that someone is very sad, that how I look, people turn away from that person. And then they use some interesting tale, and or some interesting face pack, or they wear some yantra, of someone, and then they start attracting, they change, it changes how they look, and then they start attracting so much of attention. They have friends, they can deliver confident presentations, they can date, they can do anything in the world, So there is this, because you've got to understand that the beauty is now an industry. It's an industry, it's a industry, so the industry is also selling itself. So in that, it's generating this influence where the implicit message is that if you look good, if you have a designer body, then you get everything. That's the message that is being circulated. More important that when you see these before and after pictures, there's a smile on one face, there isn't a smile on the face. क्यों? जब पहले appearance खराब थी तो कोई smile तो कर सकता है ना, ये थोड़ी ना कि change होने के बाद ही कोई smile करेगा. So that's how they operate. But I would also like to kind of not get into this, that we cannot say that media is causing it. So, but media is one factor which is, I would say, increasing it, and it has actually been seen, that the eating disorders, especially anorexia nervosa, it has been found that the more westernized a country is, the more are the people in that country who suffer from that disease. So it's seen as a disease of westernization, when you get too focused about your health, about your body weight. So media has a huge influence. So there are many of these transformational stories which people buy into, or they are forced to buy into, because if you see the same thing every day, every day you see the same thing, that somewhere hits you again and again. I may see one such ad once, and that may not really do a lot to me, but if I were to see it every second day, then it would start feeding into my mind. So media would actually add panic and low self-esteem to the people who are already struggling, who already have some struggle with their self. They are very easy targets to get sucked into this marketing game, and they become very good candidates for it. And now two very interesting researches, like these two very, very cherished toys of children, G.I. Joe and Barbie doll. So these are like fantasy of children. So someone did a very interesting research, because it's also like this, that when you have an ideal toy, you somewhere keep that toy in your mind. Every child keeps that toy in their mind and somewhere wants to be, like that toy also, or like the figure of the toy. So interestingly, and I would say that how harsh these toys are, or how harsh ideas they put, because someone did this research. If Barbie doll has become thinner over the years, and if she were an actual woman, she would only have a 16-inch waist. Is that possible for someone to have a 16-inch waist? No. Then it's interesting how come they make such toys. And the G.I. Joe would have a 32-inch bicep, So that's what these toys are about. 16-inch waist and a 32-inch bicep. Coming to cognitive distortions, as I said, that we all have certain ways of perceiving reality. Like, this is a glass. This is a glass which has water, and this is a plain glass. But if I were to wear different colored glasses and look at this glass, what I would see would be slightly different. At times I may see something which is red, something which is blue, something which is less transparent, something which is more transparent, something like that. Similarly, each person has certain mindset and certain way of looking at it. There are some people who look in certain distorted ways. So filtering is one such way which has been extensively researched in this area. What happens in filtering is that the person's mindset is such that they would focus more on the negative aspects, even if they are less in number, and they would ignore the positive aspects. So that's very common in these people. So by focusing on one single thing that the individual dislikes about himself or herself, they lose sight of all the positive aspects of their body. apart from the media, because media is also somewhere, it both, so there's a cyclical process, that the culture influences the media and the media also influences the cultural values. It's like a bi-directional influence. So the standards of beauty and what is physically attractive. Now in India, if you were to look like few years ago, so so we never had a size 0 over here. Like say some 22 years back, there was no the concept of size 0. So contemporary culture, any culture would have a different ideal of beauty, the value it would place on beauty, and it would also differ from one period to another. And whatever ideas it would have, it would really start influencing the person, the way the person would see their body, and also the emphasis they would pay to their body. Yes, Maitri.
I'm a living example of this. 20 years ago I lived in India, and well, I pretty much looked the same, maybe a little thinner, and I just didn't cut it. I just didn't. So everybody was saying, oh my gosh, you have skin on bones, and you need to pack in some, interesting.
Have ghee butter.
Yes. Yeah. And I went to the United States. I fit in absolutely fine there. In fact, I was the focus of a lot of envy there. And so 20 years after that, I moved back into India, and I'm fine. So yeah, things change. It's incredible. I'm thankful. So, and also I don't pay all that much attention now. But when I was much younger, I would keep wondering.
True, and I also,
why am I like this? Yeah.
And I would fully agree with you. I feel so unfortunate because I'm like when I was like when I was say 8-9 years old, there were no gyms and there was no hurry and no greed in anyone to go to gyms and build biceps.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, when I was like in 9th or 10th class, I could simply see this obsession coming up and people going to gyms, and I felt, oh shit, how unfortunate. And I actually felt at that one point of time, I really wish I would have been like one generation back and I would not have to be a part of all this thing. So that also does happen. Yeah. So coming to now dealing with appearance anxiety, I would also say that here we are talking about milder forms of appearance anxiety. The severe forms are too severe; they need professional input. People who are like who are obsessing on their appearances day in and day out, who are contemplating going to surgeons. They are very severe cases who would take a very long time to recover. But simple principles of like what can be done about it. Right. So one and the most important thing is obviously self-awareness. Self-awareness related to many things. First of all, I think the person needs to be self-aware and needs to come to this point that the problem is somewhere more than their body. So that's what they need, and it's very important. If you have someone like that with you, it's very important to not outrightly reject their concerns and say that, oh, you don't have a problem there, you have a problem in their head. That will simply alienate these people and they will feel that you don't understand them. So it's important to give this message very slowly, very politely and very empathically to them and say that, yes, I do understand, I can see that you are very disturbed by your body, but don't you think you have done enough to deal with it and it's still not doing? Maybe there could be something more than your body which is into play over it. So they would be more open to such kind of input rather than simply saying and dismissing their concerns, because no one likes their concerns to be outrightly rejected, ridiculed or dismissed. So that's very important. Apart from that, it's very important for the person to link these responses to trauma. If there has been any trauma in their life, whether that was sexual abuse, teasing, bullying, or they have, in general felt unloved. There are many people who may not have the trauma of that kind. They may be growing up in a very average normal family, but they feel unloved due to different kinds of reasons. So it's very important to touch base with this trauma, with this intense feeling, that why do they, that what was wrong in their past, which makes them so unsure about their body. Finding the trauma and getting onto this trauma may not be so easy in everyone's case. In some cases it can be very easily discovered, in some it may not be so easily discovered, because there's also denial. People who have been traumatized use various forms of denial to deal with it, and one needs to work with it gradually. Then it's very important that once the trauma has been identified, and from the trauma one needs to make them get in touch with the view of their self. That because they were traumatized, they are feeling horrible about their self, they are feeling weak, they are feeling undesirable in their self, and then once they acknowledge these feelings about their self, then you would link them to their body. And that's how the feelings are getting transferred from yourself to your body. And another component in self-awareness is that also questioning the view projected by media and the popular culture, and understanding why you cannot resist it. So it's very important to understand this, because there may be hundreds of views prevalent. I may not want to agree with them, but I still agree with them. So it's very important to acknowledge this point, that why can you not resist a view, or why do you buy into it without still wanting not to agree with it. So that's very important, because that would again lead you to certain weak points in yourself, as you were saying. So there's something wrong with yourself. That's why you are so highly impressionable. After that happens, a large work needs to be done on restoring the person's self-esteem, and making them feel good about their self. In that also, they would need to really recall, various traumatic experiences from their life, which are the sources of poor self-worth. And these may include, as I said, experiences of separation. In general, what happens is that as a child, if you have a very traumatic separation, even if things around you are fine, the children end up feeling that because I was left alone, or because this person died, or this person went away, or there was a divorce in my family, that had something to do with me. That's what children very naively start believing in. So various experiences of separation, rejection, bullying, abusing, difference is another very important thing. If you are born in a family where, say, your personality is very different from the rest of the personality, you inevitably would end up feeling very horrible about yourself if the family cannot find a way to celebrate this difference and create some space for it. If the family is such, then fine, it's a family of doctors, and here someone is born who's very rustic and who's very interested into athletics and stuff like that. If the family can open up to this difference and give space to it and value it to some extent, then things will be different. But if there's a lot of pressure on this person to come, along, so then this difference can again be very traumatic for the person. And the related fantasies about self, because with any kind of traumatic experience, you develop a view of yourself. So it's not important just to touch upon the traumatic experiences, but also to ask the person or make them reflect on that in relation to that trauma, how did they feel about themselves? That's very important to uncover. That how these experiences led to a distortion in the perception of the person's self and also in the perception of other people. Because generally when we are traumatized, we also start perceiving the world as a harsh place. So we feel that if I am not good, then I would be bashed by someone, or I would be hated by someone. Once these distortions are identified, they need to be challenged repeatedly. So the person needs to tell himself or herself that I feel so horrible about myself because of that thing which was there in the past. But there is no such thing in the present, and I'm simply transferring those feelings onto here, and I need not be so bothered about this at this moment. And this is not something again which is very easy. It's like you have to get into a meditative trance, as you do in the meditation, that you chant the same thing again and again and again. So these kinds of self-understandings also have to be sort of gone past again and again in almost like a chant-like manner. Because once yourself is scarred, those feelings and thoughts will come up time and again, they need to be again and again dealt with. Challenging these distortions leads to a new set of experiences very gradually, which start enhancing a person's self-esteem. And ultimately getting in touch with your true self and allowing it to, giving it some kind of, space in various kind of activities and spheres would also help deal with this anxiety tremendously. Also, like if the person has been traumatized, tolerance for feeling those feelings is very important, because until and unless the person is able to touch upon, that you can deal with those feelings only when you are able to feel them. So feeling them is very important. So the person needs to be in touch with their pain and face it. Also, sharing your emotions with people who understand you and who care for you very intimately is very important, and the person would undergo a whole mourning process, which takes a lot of time. And then the last thing would be working with your thoughts, so that people who generally have very critical and perfectionist parts in themselves, so they need to time and again remind themselves that I am being too harsh on myself. It's not the way things are, or I need not be, I need not be a model or a film star to be loved by someone. So they need to do this kind of challenging their thoughts. And these things would that these things need to be done for a long period of time to kind of deal with this anxiety. So thank you, and we can have some questions now. Commission and feedback, yeah.
You said sharing with someone who understands this
Right.
side.
Right.
But how long should that mourning take? I mean, sometimes it's just, I have someone who is in mourning for a long time and calls me and drains me, and I keep listening, and it's been years, but I'm waiting for the bigger mourning is extended.
See, mourning, everyone will have their own pace. But some people may take really long, but yeah, if you feel that in all the years nothing has changed, then that's very complicated, or mourning, and something more needs to be done about it than just listening. If you feel that yes, changes have happened in this person, but still there's a need to mourn, then it may be a normal need.
It's like a seesaw. It's good one day, it's bad another day, but the bad keeps coming back.
But do you feel that over the period of time the good has started predominating in certain ways, or it's the same pattern?
It's the same pattern. I mean, I used to get hopeful initially, but now I feel God.
Okay. Then I think...
but the person is not willing to help herself.
So you mean to say that she just wants, when she calls you up, she just wants you to hear her story, that's it, or she wants you to do something more?
No, hear her story again and again of how she's been wrong, how she's been wrong, and how she's been wrong.
I think with such a person, it may be very helpful to share your own feelings, that how do you feel about her state. Again, in a very empathic manner, and also to...
How do you state without, it's a very touchy thing.
Right, but you could also say something about, you could also, make this point to her that you are really concerned that she has not, that she is at the same point for last so many years. There is no change happening. So, and saying that.
When I suggest ways of doing things, seeking help, it's always, oh, I don't have time for my work, my work is so busy.
Then to such a person, I think, it's important to hold on to the empathic aspect. One should never let go of it. But you could, be slightly confrontational also with that. Confrontational in the sense that, that you could kind of highlight it to them in a very polite manner that they are also somewhere, playing some part in whatever is happening by not doing anything. I think because actually when this happens, then the whole movement from a victim to someone who can do something begins. Till the time one is seeking just some kind of hand-holding, and hand-holding is coming one's way, one is in a victimized state. That I am a victim. The movement needs to happen from the victim to the survivor. So I that may help in that case. You and then you, yeah.
I had a couple of questions. One was, you gave a lot of examples of men, and I'm curious how the profile of the patients who have appearance dysmorphia or appearance obsessions has shifted, or what is the proportion of your patients in terms of sex? And the second question is, I didn't see much of the psychoanalytic dimension of the analysis of the problem except the possibility of early childhood experience. I wonder if we might return to the question from the front about the pressure she received, the psychodynamics of the family.
Right.
I'm wondering if you could expand more on the psychoanalytic lens through which you would look at this problem versus, say, a sociologist like me would say media and other sort of social influences. So what is the specific sort of advantage of the psychoanalytic lens for problem therapy?
Okay, see, so two questions. I just, your first question was about the gender, aspect of this problem. One thing is, I have interestingly worked with more men patients, so my examples, come up from there. But yeah, there are, as far as the statistics go, it's there in equal number in men and women. There's no gender disparity as such. Men, in fact, are much more close-guarded about, because in fact, in my experience, a lot of people, because the men I have seen, all the men were going to the gym, they were working very hard in the gym, and still they had all these things. So that really makes me wonder, that the extent of this problem in men, because they. Also because apart from one person, no one just came up with this problem. It was just in the course of the treatment that we could discover eventually that this thing is also there. As far as the psychoanalytic aspect is concerned, now it also depends on, that what in psychoanalysis and how in psychoanalysis we are talking about. The first aspect that I talked about, the ugly self, that's the psychoanalytical gist of it. That someone who feels very ugly about their body, somewhere has this ugly self which has been bullied, unappreciated, unloved. So that's the core of this. That it's in psychoanalytical terms, it's a self-related pathology.
So self to body.
Yeah.
That's the
So that's the main thing. Apart from that, see, there are certain very old schools which I don't think they make much sense. So I'm not really touching on them because Also from a relational dimension, so that's from a self dimension. From a relational dimension, one would come to the sense that if somewhere, people in the child's environment, if they have not been comfortable in relating to the child, that if they are not very comfortable in relating to the child, that also may lead to this kind of a sense that I am flawed and my body is flawed. Largely these two things, and what she was mentioning, that can, but that per se does not come under the domain of appearance anxiety. It's more about when we are talking about child-parent dynamics. It's more colored than that, because see, it's very important. It's like a very usual, normal family thing that someone would, it's more someone would be bothered about the child appearance, someone would be bothered about whether my child, gets up at 5 a.m. in the morning or not. So there can be various things. It's more of a relationship. Yes.
Firstly, I want to say that it was a very nice presentation.
Thank you so much.
And I want to say two things. These are not really questions, but
yeah, you can. People can also share.
Yeah.
In fact, we should rather share. It's the end of the series now. Yeah.
The first thing I want to say is that people who have these kind of situations or problems, it's not just them who need to work on it, but people who think and look normal according to themselves also need to kind of take up, let's say, a responsibility to make people who think that they look abnormal feel comfortable around it. So, and it can happen in the most common of situations, like if I'm walking across and I think I look normal, and a person who is a little overweight, he's passing by me, and instead of just being normal and giving him a smile, I kind of look at him in a strange way, and he starts to feel more bad about himself.
And in general, people also have a rule,
Yeah, this is like really, really bad.
That is not.
So I think because I think there are more people who think that they look normal than the other ones. So if we can do something, like I think that I look normal, so if I can do from my side whatever that it takes to make the other people feel comfortable, then that should help. And the second thing that I want to share is that the topic of this presentation was the ugly self. And I think if someone really knows their self, it can never be ugly, because no one is ugly when they know their self. And what I'm kind of touching on is the spiritual aspect of it. And I'm working as a massage therapist, and many times when I'm working on someone's body, it is much deeper than that, and it can also be about mental, but in most cases I find that it's very spiritual. And if people know the insignificance of the body, or how they look, and how many factors are controlling it, and how much actually it is not in your control how you look, then, and just focus on the things which are more important, like who they actually are and what they do and how they spend their time. If everyone focuses more on that, then I think these kind of things would actually disappear. People thinking bad about how they look or how bad their body is. That's all I want to share.
Thanks.
I'm a professional photographer.
Okay.
Talk a bit about, or can make 3 observations about parents' consciousness of normality.
Yeah.
People carry a certain consciousness what they are, what they look like.
Right.
And as a photographer of a place, and you can't imagine, people have a self-image which is very difficult to match between them and what you photographed. And they have a self-image when they were young or more beautiful, or they projected by the media or whatever else. So everyone has a certain self-image when they face of what they are. And it's not only the ugly self. Everybody has, in a way, that got. I'll give you an example. I got an assignment to photograph Shana Hussain, doing a book. So went there and I got to the drawing room. This is a very lovely small picture of when she was young and beautiful. I said, "Ye to mar gayi." as you put on the wedding. And it became difficult, couldn't satisfy her at all. Till by chance another photographer friend who was doing this writing took a picture of her looking up. And she used that picture all over in all her hoardings because it became a certain thing. So in a way, there is a consciousness of self-image of every human being. And the ability of the photographer is to either find the angle or find something in the eye or look around and capture it. Now with everybody having cameras, I pity most of them. They don't even know how to use them. They need to use them more intelligently. That's the only observation.
You should do a workshop on that. I'll also come there.
Time for your lecture.
Yeah, please come here.
You have to capture it. You have to be aware to look. And there's a lot in the eye that you find. And searching for what is this person's self-image is that you can match or make him forget that. It's a challenge. I enjoy that.
I was wondering if you can talk a little more on the perfectionist aspect of this, how this kicks in, the combination of a certain personality characteristic, which is perfectionism, how that comes about and how that then interacts with either cognition or family dynamics or then, the whole sense of self. Comment a little more on that.
You could do that.
I would. I want to.
Why don't you do it?
No, platform is yours.
Okay. Yeah. So, what she also mentioned, what we touched upon, this whole idea, that there's certain people who have this, what we call the perfectionist streak, that they would want to be perfect. And it can be in various domains. It can be in one's work, it can be in one's self. And that, in itself, that structures one's self and one's relationships and the family also in a certain way. Because then one is, very harsh in some way on one's own self and family, and because they want things to be in a certain way, and it's more this that when they don't see those things in that, till that point, it's like it's some sort of an all or none thinking person. That either if it's there, then it's good. If not, then it's bad. So that leads to this kind of a cognitive distortion, which plays a lot of havoc on themselves.
I want to highlight the aspect of dealing with such anxiety,
Right.
empathy, as you mentioned over and over again,
Right.
love and caring, because very often such people are isolated
Right.
and lacking in love from their close ones, who are whether family or friends. And finally, if you are able to do, as the gentleman said, a SWOT analysis, a strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, threat analysis, in a rational way with a person, and focus on some hidden talent that the person may not even have focused on, you are soon able to change their behavior.
Right.
So SWOT analysis technique helps to begin with, to get such people moving from lack of self-esteem to developing the self-esteem.
Right.
And that, I think, goes well with changing the behavior of such people.
Okay, then thank you so much. And this was the last program in the series. Hopefully, VIMHANS in a few more months will be coming with a new program with a new person. So, bye.